Now, let's shift to what Caleb thinks is our main course, basic history. So when and why did December 25th become associated, or rather I should say it the other way around. When did Jesus' birthday become associated with December 25th? Was it religious syncretism? Has to do with astronomy and science of the stars, or does it have to do with the early apostles actually handed it down as a tradition?
Okay, I got a quote here from this. So let's set up the argument a little bit. This is from this article by Stephen Hidgmans.
Probably Hymans.
Okay. So this is on page 378 for anybody who is following along and has downloaded said article. He says, it is usually suggested that establishing a feast day on the birthday of Christ became important as a result of doctrinal disputes concerning the human and divine natures of Christ. So this kind of sets up for us what this scholar here is proposing. There had been, I'm going to go on with his quote and then maybe we'll clarify. There had been numerous groups that argued for a strong distinction between the human and divine. For example, in the 2nd century, the Basilidians, I'm saying that wrong, taught that the divine Christ appeared on Epiphany to reside temporarily in the body of the human Christ. In their view, the date of birth of a human Jesus was of no interest, as he was only temporarily host to the divine Christ. Now we're talking, this is me talking.
And this goes back, Caleb, what you were talking earlier. The Epiphany was already celebrated.
Correct. So the Epiphany was on January 7th.
And the Epiphany
January 7th.
Is associated with
the Spirit coming. The Spirit coming down. It's associated with the Spirit coming down as a dove when Christ was baptized. That's the Epiphany.
But I also saw somewhere where it's associated with the wise men visiting the baby, like that he has appeared to the nations, like that it has to do with.
Yeah, but they say that it was both, right? They say that it was both.
Yeah, okay. Well, and this follows in the line of remembering significant dates. Remembering significant dates in recent history was not crazy. I mean, we've talked about before with, I think last week, with the Megillat Ta'anit, the Scroll of Fasting, has a whole bunch of days that were to be annually celebrated in a way, it's kind of like a negative celebration. It's not that there was an active feasting, but it was a forbidding to fast or to eulogize.
But let's go on with, I want to go on with this quote because we're still framing this argument, the argument that he's making. 2 centuries later, I'm going on with his quote here. 2 centuries later, the Manichaeans went further, claiming that Jesus either was not born at all, or in any case did not take flesh of the Virgin Mary, but simply appeared among men on Epiphany. One can easily imagine how the Feast of Epiphany could be linked exclusively to the divine aspect of Christ, which was somehow revealed on January 6th.
Because the word epiphany means revealed.
Yes.
Or appeared. Yeah.
If the church were to celebrate Epiphany only, but not the birth of Christ, that could be seen to emphasize that there was indeed a distinction of importance between the two natures of Christ, human, birth unimportant, and divine, Epiphany, important. Developing a feast of the birthday of Christ was a reaction to these views, counteracting such dichotomies by stressing the importance of the physical birth of Jesus. But why was the birth date set on December 25th rather than March 28th? Okay. Let's recap.
Well, let's kind of jump the gun.
Okay, let's recap for just a second, though. Okay.
What he's saying, he's not saying that this is his claim. He's saying it is usually suggested that. So this whole paragraph is the author saying this is a common.
See, but I don't know. I see what he's saying is that I think that he's taking the view that they were fighting a form of Gnosticism.
I think that is part of it. That's not all of it.
Okay, but
for this guy,
I agree. But I think that he also holds to the claim that they were that the Christians in the whatever century, and we'll talk about that in a few seconds, 1st, 2nd, 3rd century, were fighting some form of Gnosticism that was not only growing but was becoming quite prevalent, and that what they were saying was what the Gnostics were saying was, look, all things physical are bad, and Jesus Christ, he's the same. His physical body, bad. sin, bad, right?
No, he didn't have. The Docetists say that he only appeared, it only seemed like he had a physical body.
Okay, yeah, but other forms of Gnosticism, I agree with you completely.
Right.
But other forms of Gnosticism were saying, yeah, Jesus Christ, the human, was born sometime, but nobody cares about that because it wasn't really God. It wasn't God on earth. That was just some human dude that was born. But then when the Epiphany happened, what happened? Christ comes down, he indwells this shell of a body, and now you have God on earth.
Okay. So, and we're dating all these. This all happens basically when? Early 4th century. When you have all these kind of clashing against each other, right?
But you have
these different views.
I agree, but you have forms of Gnosticism earlier than the third,
I get
fourth
it.
century.
My point is, though, all these different views come to a clash by the year 300. These things are all, you have the development of these different groups that have these different ways of envisioning who Yeshua is. Was he just a man that was baptized and received the Holy Spirit? Was he not really human at all? Was he like some divine being that was never truly human? And you have different groups that have developed different ways of thinking it, and they kind of all develop separately over the centuries. And then by the year early 300s, that's when, at least in literary record, we can actually see them clashing with
Okay,
each
but
other.
let's bring to light a little bit more what's going on here. This author is basically, now correct me if I'm wrong, this author is basically saying, look, December 25th was not a pagan festival, but rather the Christians chose it, and then the pagans adopted it as one of their holidays afterwards. Is that correct?
He's not making it that pointed. What Heisman's is saying, in my reading, is that Roman sun worship has been conflated in those in the history of religions camp who say, they just create a headline that says Christmas is the adoption of the day of worship of the sun, Sol Invictus. And this guy, being a historian of Roman religion, if you look at all his publications, I mean, this guy is deep into it. He says, no, you're totally misrepresenting Roman religion, and therefore it's almost like back to the Duplo Lego. My argument, he's saying you're using Duplo Legos to portray, quote, paganism or sun worship, and there's really, if you get feet on the ground, there's a lot of things going on, and you got to put everything in its right place to have an accurate picture. That's what he's, one of the things he accomplishes with this article.
See, I don't think that. I think that he proves the opposite point that he's trying to make. I think that within his article, he proves that the cult of soul worship was so large in the time that we finally have writing about it in the 300s, in the 4th century, and in the same document that you have attestation of the birth of Christ or the celebration of the birth of Christ on December 25th, you have the same attestation of the winter equinox and the worship of Sol and Sol Invictus on that time.
What Caleb's talking about there, we should just pause, is what's the chronograph of 354.
Correct.
It's called the calendar of 354. It's the earliest. Now, I think the earliest actual manuscript we have is like from the 1600s or 1700s. So we don't even have, but it's dated to the mid 4th century in terms of when the text was originally written. Obviously, we don't have the copy that was originally written. So it's dated to that time. And in that document, you can see it consists of two documents. One is a civil calendar, and another is a calendar of the martyrs. And the calendar of martyrs that's part of this chronograph of 354 is dated even older, but it was added to this civil calendar as a giant document for a wealthy Christian in Rome. In this document, in this section of the civil calendar, it has December 25th as a celebration of Sol Invictus, right, the invincible sun. In this other section of this chronograph, this history of the martyrs, it gives what they call eight calends or whatever. It's it calculates to be December 25th as the birthday of Yeshua in Bethlehem of Judea. They're totally different. They're in different places of the book. They're completely far. They're not right next to each other. They're completely different. And scholars say that they're two different texts that have been put together, dated to the middle of the 4th century.